See, now the white are keeping intact, and the knee soft is like creating like a breaking point over there. The reason why it looks like a very hard transition is because the knee soft is in 0. If we put it, for example, in 20, it will create a softer transition between the gamma and the white. But this allows us a great control of the curve in many situations. Normally, this control was associated with the HDR mode, but it's not really correct. You can use it in any situation, in video grade mode as well. If you prefer to use the video grade with the white point at, I don't know, 100 or 60 or 70 or whatever, you can just leave the video grade mode and enable the knee soft. Knee soft can be useful as well to make, for example, some soft clip on the blacks. So for example, here, I'm going just to move the blacks so I have negative values. And I'm going to create another layer. And I'm going to enable the knee soft here. I'm going just to go down with the soft clip and with the white in here. And in this moment, the lift is creating the soft clip without affecting the rest of the curve. So as you can see, this toggle is really useful to control your image without affecting the whole signal. Again, another example of the flexibility of Mistika and the capabilities of the color toolset. And now the great thing is, now this is not abstract anymore because you see the result in here in primary. I spend a lot of time in primary because this here it allows us to understand how they work the rest of the tools. So for example, if we go now to bands, we have a similar structure. We have the trackball in here. We have our histogram in there to control it. This is the ranges. In fact, we have the ranges from black to shadows, the shadows between the shadows and highlights. We have the midtones, highlights, and the whites. And we can control them in the same way. And in that way, we can just control the signal wherever we want. And the pivots give us a really visual result of what we are doing with the trackball. Again, the bands include two modes, the trackball or this slider. This slider basically is to control the black hue, black saturation, and contrast from black, midtones, white, and all. It's another visual way to control the parameters that traditionally we have in here. We keep the parameters in there because, I mean, it's faster and you don't need to make one extra click. But we have included these two modes because this is more visual and it can be useful in some circumstances. Okay. Then we go to the fixed vectors. Well, everyone loves this tool. I mean, we haven't changed anything here because it's probably one of the most beloved tools in Mistika. What we have included is the values. Now you know exactly in which value are you moving. The great thing is with these values is that, well, you can even work in small values from 0.1 to 0.1. So again, another example of the accuracy and finesse of the color grading in Mistika. It's not like just moving and it changes everything in a very radical way. You have full control and in a very smooth way of the vectors. So that part, even that part that was almost perfect in the previous version, has been improved thanks to this value. So as you can see, it's not just an exercise of redesigning the interface to make it look better. It's redesigning the interface to include even more features. Now the curves panel, which is probably one of the most changed panels in the whole color grade toolset. Now we have all the RGB curves in here, the saturation against saturation and luma against saturation curve, and the hue curves in there. All of them in the same panel, so you can control the three of them from the same space. We have included a solo here, so basically we have the gang RGB, so if you want to create some kind of curve, you have these options there. You can, instead of having the gang, you can just bring the red or the green or the blue or the white. And if you disable, for example, I'm going to move some changes so we see it better. If I disable the solo mode, we have all the curves painted in there and we can control them individually. Okay. Now, great new functionality here. The fact that now we can open a floating window at any size. We can rescale this at any size. We have a secondary monitor. We can move it there to control the curves in a much nicer way. So we can control them from here, as you can see. Now, another interesting function here, for example, in the hue, we have add some points in here to add, for example, a point in the red color automatically, or in yellow, green, etc. So instead of having the traditional add points, we add 6 points in all the curves. What we have is a quick access to add points to the primary colors and the secondary colors in the hue curves that we can navigate here. All the curves have been organized in a way that are really simple to work with them. Okay, the functionality stay the same. We have the at 1 point, at 3 points to change the type of point. For example, here to make it sharp or smooth or connected tangents or independent tangents. We are keeping all the functionality from the previous Mistika color grade, and we are making it better. And finally, we have the filters in here. Filters that include the blur, the blur that we had in the previous version, and now we are adding a sharpen. You need to select a blur or sharpen because it's not pretty common to have both options at the same time. So you have the 2 options and you can just change it from here automatically. This panel looks a bit empty, but it has a reason. It's because in the future we can add more functionality here. For example, a denoise or any new filter that we can imagine. Again, all the design of Mistika 10 is think looking in the future. It's not like this is the end and that's it. We have a space in almost all the panels to include more functionality, more buttons, more options if we need it. Okay. And finally, we have here the qualifier. The qualifier has been designed in a really nice way because it used the same philosophy that the whole color grading toolset. We have a top toolbar with the basic settings of the keyer, and then at the bottom we have all the filters, the blurs, etc. for making your key. All the keys have been organized in this layout. So we have the hue, saturation, and luma, the RGB, the 3D keyer, and the multi-layer. Great thing is the multi-layer, for example, includes all the parameters, the numerical parameters here. So you don't need to navigate again to the color tree to change those settings. Everything is included in here in the new interface. And yeah, I mean, they work in the same way in the fact that you can combine any amount of keyers between them. There are some new functionalities here. For example, these settings here to move faster to the selection that we want to work. So for example, we want to select the yellow hues. I can just click on here, enable my highlight, and I can just move it. So this will help me to move quick between all the colors that I want to use. For example, probably the most interesting one is the skin tone. If I go to here, I'm going to load color grade node over there. I can just select the skin tone and automatically selecting, see, the skin tone, because it's like taking a pre-configuration of a preset of settings for the hue, and it's selecting automatically. So it's like a quick access to some selections. Okay, and again, this has been organized in a way that now is much simple to use. There is no hidden menus or anything. Everything works in the same panel. Everything works from here. You don't need to navigate between the output tab or the filter tab or nothing. Everything is in here. The merge key is the external key. We have changed the name to make it easier to understand, but it's easier, but it's not more limited. Again, we are including new features, new functionalities, but keeping it simple, keeping it even cleaner and nicer. Okay. Now let's take a look to the shapes, because this part is the one that we are still developing. Well, we are developing everything, but that part is probably the one that is now in development. So don't worry if you see something weird or something that is not working as you expected, because again, in the following days, you will see the final version of this tool. The idea is to not make you move to the shape panels and work directly in here with this quick access. So an example of this is I can just create some shape. I'm going to create a quick shape in here. We have all the options to change the points from here, for example, smooth or sharp or connected tangents or independent tangents. And even with the middle button, I can just drag and I'm making the softness. So in that way, I can work in a faster way. I don't need to go to the traditional shape panel, check the panel, width, offset, etc. Everything works directly in the interface, whatever you want on the color grade. So now we are in here, but if we go to, I don't know, bands, we have the same options. I can just take a little bit part of the face, change it to smooth, for example. No, sorry, not selected, change it to smooth, and just with the middle button, increase it. With Shift, I can just change from inside outside. With Alt, I can just change the outside, or with Control, the inside. So again, it's a quick access for that selection. You don't need to move to another panel, because in that way we improve the operativity with Mistika. Is again is an idea of making it look cleaner, but at the same time making it faster. And this is one of the examples of this philosophy. For example, if we load, this is the part that is now more in development. Okay, so if I enable the rectangle, you will be able to drag a mode, and there you go. Now you have your shape wherever you want. Same thing with the sphere. Now it works like a rectangle because it's loading the bounding box, but this will change. Now you have your circle, and now you can control it. It's much faster at the end, as you can see. It's much easier. We have removed the Windows option for now, because it creates in previous version quite a lot of problems, especially between the communication between shapes and window. Many people ask for having shape presets instead of windows, and that's what we are doing with the shapes and rectangle here. The great thing is that those presets will work not only in color grade, but in any effect in Mistika.